This week, medicines, makeup and marker paint. Hey, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about gaming. Lara, what was the last game you played?
Does Wordle count?
Yes, it does.
I got it in 2 in my first ever go. I'm quitting whilst I'm ahead, never playing again.
Wow, very wise. Show off. In our house, it's mainly and a fair bit of, and quite recently a little bit of. Now, look, we all get sucked into the latest game at some point, don't we, and end up playing it just a bit too much.
Yeah, for most of us it's just a harmless pastime or a bit of entertainment, but for others it can be taken too far.
Now, Mark Chislak has gained exclusive access to the UK's only treatment centre for video game addiction.
Many of the teenage patients have an obsessive desire to play, and almost all of their social interactions are about gaming.
And in fact, if their consoles are taken away, it can lead to violent outbursts and confrontations with parents and carers, and sometimes even threats to take their own life.
For us as a couple, it's been challenging in as much as it's quite difficult to have interaction outside the house. And even having people around you feel a degree of embarrassment sometimes. I mean, for the duration of the visit, it'll just be upstairs gaming all the time, shouting and cursing. For us, sleeping has been a huge issue. So often that we'll just sleep in separate rooms, and I'll have to have the fan on to sort of drown out his game.
Stephen and Louise are describing life with their 16-year-old son who suffers from gaming disorder. Those aren't their real names. We're protecting their identities. It's a controversial condition defined by the World Health Organization by 3 characteristics: impaired control when gaming, prioritising gaming over other interests, and escalation of gaming despite negative consequences. The games industry and some psychologists question the evidence used to define the disorder. Until quite recently in the UK, help for problems like this could only be sought via private healthcare. The NHS has created a specialist clinic for treatment of the condition via therapy.
Hello, thank you for calling National Centre for Gaming Disorder.
We've got 4 people, 4 under 16s parents.
Based in West London, it's part of the National Centre for Behavioural Addictions. This is the first time cameras have been allowed to film inside the gaming clinic.
We know that gaming disorder is quite a rare condition. So the symptoms of gaming disorder can be really quite severe, which has surprised us. So they can struggle with anger, anxiety and low mood. Often they also experience physical symptoms in terms of loss of sleep, and that's often because people will be gaming at night to connect with gamers abroad.
Yeah, so we need to think about the groups that we're going to start in the new year.
This is the only NHS clinic in the UK treating gaming disorder. Its patients are spread out across England and Wales and are often treated via video chat, something they've been doing here since way before the pandemic made the practice commonplace. Video games are a massive pastime and source of entertainment and connection for people. But when does the amount of time spent playing cross the line into problematic behaviour? A recent study concluded that, broadly speaking, playing video games is actually good for most people's mental health and well-being, and that playing games has helped lots of people get through the pandemic.
So we're not saying that gaming is bad at all. We completely accept that for a lot of people it's a really positive thing in their life. We are really talking about that small percentage of people who are having a massive problem with it, and it's genuinely affecting their quality of life and their ability to interact and their ability to function. We opened our doors at the end of 2019. We've had well over 300 referrals since then, 200 just in 2021. We start treatment at 13. We've had a few 12-year-olds who've been referred. We've also heard from people as young as 8, or parents of people as young as 8, but we haven't been able to see them. And the age of people being referred to the clinic goes right up to the 60s. It's very strongly weighted in favour of male, so we've seen 89% of people have been male.
Stephen and Louise's 16-year-old son has recently been diagnosed with autism. His issues with games have been ongoing for several years and have sometimes led to violent episodes. A recent outburst resulted in a police intervention when their son physically assaulted Stephen. They referred him to the gaming disorder clinic themselves, but he hasn't engaged with the treatment.
What was most helpful for us is talking to other parents. They made a special support group for parents who have the same gaming needs or addiction, whatever you want to call it. We meet once a fortnight on Zoom to discuss how we're doing.
And more than anything else, I think the greatest thing about that in terms of benefit is to realise that you're not alone. There's loads of other people up and down the country and all across the world that are going through the exact same situation.
What do you think the future looks like for your son, and what do you think the future looks like for you as a family?
I feel optimistic because on Facebook I follow a lot of people who are very like our son, but they're adults now. And I follow them because they're hugely insightful, but also it really helps me feel he will find his way.
That was Mark, and of course mental health issues aren't always immediately visible. If you were affected by anything you saw there in the report, if you're in the UK you can find support at BBC Action Line or internationally at befrienders.org.
Now, whether it's mental or physical health, the NHS helps millions of people every day. And that means it has to move a huge number of medicines around the country. And one of the busiest distribution centres in the UK is not far from us here in Glasgow. This centre processes 15 to 20,000 medicines every day, sending boxes to hospitals and wards across the Glasgow area. It's a massive operation, and this is how the filing system works. Now, when the stock comes in, it gets loaded willy-nilly onto this conveyor belt. Well, I've loaded it willy-nilly anyway. And then goes through that hole there. Now, a little sucker picks up each box and twiddles it around in front of this sensor where a QR code tells the computer the dimensions of the box, the expiry date and what it is, of course. And then it gets dropped on that conveyor belt and sent to the main event. There are 8 of these robot arms which sort the medicines and place them onto suitably sized shelves. Then, as the orders from the hospital wards come in, they pick them back off the shelves in the correct combination and send them down the chutes into boxes ready for dispatch to each ward.
The popularity of medicines changed because in the summer months you might have more antihistamines being getting used than we do in the winter months, and cough syrups more in the winter months. So it stores a bit of history, and it knows based on previous outputs when the trends rise, and it'll know to then move it closer to the output.
Now, the software doesn't put all of one type of medicine in the same place. It kind of distributes it all over the place, and it tries to get the medicine that's going to go out of date first, closest to the output conveyor belt. But once it's picked those, the newest stuff goes in there and everything goes a bit out of order. And so, during the quiet moments, the robot does a bit of housekeeping, kind of sorts out its medicine cabinet. Now, this isn't brand new technology, but it has perhaps become more relevant since the pandemic. As with many health systems over the last few years, the NHS is suffering from a huge patient backlog. And when this technology was introduced, it had a big impact on where people could be deployed.
Previously, a lot of your pharmacy staff were based in the pharmacy department in the hospitals. This area then became centralised, and we released the pharmacy staff to the pharmacy ward areas.
So it may be that using more robotic systems like this could free up staff to work directly in patient care, where the human touch can really make a difference.
Hello, it's time for your weekly 90-second tech roundup. It was the week Twitter will expand its safety mode feature, which lets users temporarily block accounts that send harmful or abusive tweets. dating site Tinder goes retro and introduces blind dates for users to interact without profile pictures. And Disney is the latest massive corporation to show interest in the metaverse, appointing long-term employee Mike White as Senior VP for Next Generation Storytelling and Consumer Experiences. Meta, the company that owns Facebook, is to pay $90 million to settle a privacy lawsuit over tracking users without their knowledge. The social media giant, who this week rebranded its news feed, denied wrongdoing but settled to avoid the costs and risks of a trial. Next up, if you want to know exactly how stressed you are, new wearable tech that looks a bit like a smartwatch can tell you. Researchers at UCLA made this device, which uses sweat to monitor the level of cortisol while being worn. And finally, more private astronauts are hoping to boldly go up, but this time outside the spaceship, as billionaire Jared Isaacman filed flight plans that include the first ever commercial spacewalk. The finance CEO is already a Crew Dragon veteran, flying last year on the Inspiration 4 mission. The Polaris Dawn mission hopes to test new EVA suits and raise more money for the St Jude Children's Research Hospital. Watch this space.
This can is filled with a forensic spray, which for the first time is being used to stop domestic violence. To show how it works, I volunteered to be sprayed with it. You can't see it with the naked eye, but switch on the UV lights and you'll see I've been marked.
For years, this substance has been used to protect property and deter thieves, but now for the first time, it's been used to convict someone for harassment.
A man in Wakefield, West Yorkshire, has been jailed for breaching his non-molestation order. He'd been told to stay away from his ex-partner and her house, so when he turned up, she sprayed him with the solution.
3 police forces in England have been giving these canisters filled with the smart water to victims of domestic abuse, harassment and stalking. And if it's sprayed on a person, then it can put them exactly at the scene of a crime.
Each batch of the liquid has a unique formulation. At this lab in Telford, they mix together different chemical elements, and there's more than 1 billion possible combinations. The technicians can analyse the tiniest of samples, so from just 1 drop of the stuff, they can tell exactly which bottle it came from.
Well, I mean, I can't tell you the secret sauce to smart water, but what I can tell you is that it's made up of a combination of rare elements that would never be found naturally anywhere else in the world. Each batch is unique. We know that categorically that smart water was registered to that person and can be linked back to the scene of the crime.
What about CCTV? Would that not be a good enough deterrent?
CCTV might not identify that categorically that was that person, particularly if they were wearing something like a balaclava. Suddenly the element of doubt is there and you can't categorically prove that, whereas there is no element of doubt in something like smart water.
The idea has been around for a while. It was featured on the BBC back in 1996. But using it to deter domestic abuse is a new idea, and police say it is working.
This is what forensic marking's doing. What we're saying to the perpetrator is, if you go back to that address and you breach these conditions, if you commit offences, you will be forensically marked. We will be able to prove that as a police service, and we will bring you to justice as well.
How pleased are you that you got the conviction here in Yorkshire?
During that incident, the victim was able to safely deploy that canister during an incident at her home address, and during the subsequent investigation, we could forensically see that the individual was marked with the spray. The following day, the perpetrator was convicted and received 24 weeks in imprisonment for a breach of a non-molestation order, which we're really pleased about.
Over 200 women across the UK now have smart water in their homes, and the majority of them are telling the police that they feel safer as a result of having the tool. They're also saying that their perpetrators are not visiting them anymore. The victims say that they can go out to work and just have peace of mind.
Currently, West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire and Staffordshire police forces are using the tech as part of their domestic violence strategy. But it's thought that forensic marking will be trialled by other forces across the country too, in the hope of securing more convictions and deterring more crimes.
Now, this week is London Fashion Week. Once more, models are gracing the catwalks to show off this season's finest designer garments. Have you seen anything you like, Spencer?
No, has corduroy come back yet?
Not sure.
Yeah, it's all a little experimental for me, shall we say. But it looks very creative. How about you?
Well, don't laugh yet, but I've actually been on the runway this week. I'm off to the Fashion Innovation Agency at the London College of Fashion to test out a motion capture rig unlike any I've used before. No expensive mocap suits here, no dots painted on my face either, and no professional motion capture cameras.
With this system you don't need any of that. You can just track all the way down to finger level detail, just using camera movements, wearing the outfit you're wearing at your own convenience.
Usually the team here would be capturing proper models, but today my body's being motion tracked. Action cams, check. Gaffer tape, check. One truly awkward feeling click presenter, check. First I need to calibrate the system.
And we are good to do some motion capture.
Flex those hips, swing the arms, give me a pose, stop. Pose for the cameras, love it. Turn around, let's do the same. Amazing, strike another pose.
I don't
Excellent.
usually get camera shy, but suddenly I don't even know how to walk.
There's definitely not a job for me in modelling.
This technology in particular keeps the models relevant. You need to capture that human data, you need to capture that natural movement, their nuances, their body language, their posture, the amount of gesticulation, the amount of personal space. It gives you a real sense of that person in that space. So even if the avatar doesn't look like you, people can still look at it and be like, that's your walk, that's the way you stand, I know that that's you. It draws you in, it keeps you immersed in that experience and makes it more believable and enjoyable as a consumer.
What we've built on top of the AI are a number of processing engines on top. We have biomechanical rules written into there, so there are kinematic models, holonomic constraints, which are what the human body can do in terms of how the joints can move. So, for instance, if I bend my elbow like this, you can't bend it past a certain point of extension. Rules like that are written into the system. We can work out where your feet are when you're moving around the volume. What that allows us to do is basically create a map of the volume and view within it.
There are 6 cameras in this setup, and that's enough to track about 5 people in this space, although they may bump into each other a bit. But it can be scaled to whatever size you want, and you can choose the resolution. So, for example, if you were to use a football pitch, it could track about 22 people.
The reason we can scale that up to a full football-sized pitch, for instance, is we up the resolution of the camera to, say, like 12K. And that can be much further away, much higher up, but still maintain that pixel density of the person.
The system isn't live. Videos need to be filmed, then processed first, so it's ready for 3D garments a few hours later. But the workflow is getting faster. There's a huge amount of money being generated now through virtual garments that don't exist in the real world. But what's the reaction been to that from some of the old school fashion brands that would probably prefer everyone just wearing real clothes and they go and look at them on a real catwalk?
I think that fashion brands are starting to understand that they are addressing a consumer who doesn't only exist in the physical realm, and by using these kinds of technologies like motion capture, markerless, we can kind of curate immaterial layers that we can use in the digital realm.
The avatars look amazing.
Kostas thinks that the tech being developed now will be important for the future.
There will come a point where we're going to be able to consume digital fashion more realistically and in everyday life, and I think that these kinds of technologies allow us to kind of get there quicker.
Kate Moss, eat your heart out.
There you go, you're a natural.
And now, from clothes that you can't actually wear to makeup that you can't really see. Here's Nick Quack.
I'm really fascinated by all of those worlds that exist beyond our eyes, ears, nose and mouth and what we can sense as a person.
Renowned for creating chameleon-like clothing that changes colour depending on the wearer's environment, Lauren Bowker and her team are now turning their test tubes towards the beauty business.
We just launched our metaverse makeup Spectra, and essentially it's just a colour and a makeup and eye colour that transcends the digital physical realities.
They've made a real-world makeup intended only to be seen virtually.
The eye is a window into a reality, right? It's how we see this physical reality that we're within. But the screen is also another eye. It is another medium in which to view a different reality.
So this is the metaverse makeup here. And when I apply it to the skin, you can see it disappearing. It's almost invisible. But it comes to life when I pull out my smartphone, turn on the flash, and look, there you can see it. Look at that.
The product itself is retroreflective, so it reflects into a spectrum of light that we tuned for the mobile phone flash camera to be alive in the metaverse.
I feel like I'm literally in the future right now.
Spectra wasn't designed for everybody on the planet. It was purely designed out of curiosity.
And curious it is. Infused inside the makeup is a special ingredient made from glass microspheres coated with aluminium. It works a bit like the coatings on road signs, which reflect car headlights.
Yeah, maybe look a little bit more, yes.
Yeah, gorgeous.
I feel great. I'm in my sci-fi fantasy.
So maybe a bit higher the phone, Lauren.
It's my first metaverse photo shoot.
The inspiration came from being at a gig and watching everybody at the gig view the gig through their phones. Watching everyone watch that musician through the screen made me think, what if we could create a colour that exists in the physical space but is only seen through the screen and the digital space? Have a look at it.
Yes, looks really good.
Why would someone who wants to wear makeup not want people to see they're wearing makeup?
Why would they not? Don't we? Isn't the most interesting thing about someone the thing they don't tell you? Or the thing they don't show? For me, that's the most interesting thing.
I wear it a lot on myself because it's quite fun thinking that people don't know that you're actually wearing it, but you know.
It gave her a moment of expression that was unseen just for her.
It's like your own little secret, you know?
Is the world ready for this makeup?
I think the world absolutely is ready for it, but it won't be for everyone, and it's not meant for everyone.
Well, let's see. It's time for me to face the makeup.
Do I look ready for the metaverse? Time will tell.
Oh yes.
I think you look lovely, don't you?
He normally spends most of the day just doing his hair.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Anyway, that was Nick, and that's it from us for now.
As ever, you can keep up with us on social media. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at BBC Click.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.